Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Austin Cassidy. I'm here with Mike Tanner.
Howdy.
And we're here today to talk about our shifting market. So Mike's going to start us out talking about what the shifting market means and how fear and anxiety of the consumers is affecting what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so what's going on right now, you see in the news, you see online, you see everywhere, is a bunch of fear. Now, we know that fear sells in news, but let's talk about what fear actually does to us. Fear actually is kind of a biological thing, that it slows or shuts down functions that we might not need for survival, such as our digestive system. And it also sharpens functions that might help us survive, such as eyesight. Our heart rate increases, and our blood flows to muscles so we can run faster. So, back in the Stone Age when we were running from predators, we were able to give ourselves a chance to survive a little bit. But let's talk about the impact of chronic fear in today's world, because fear's everywhere. We're talking about potential recession. We're talking, some people are talking about a housing market bubble, which Austin's going to address here in just a minute. I don't believe is the case. Wars, you name it. I mean, it's just bad news right now. If you flip on, I don't care what your news of choice is, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, anywhere in between. People are peddling fear. And that can have a huge impact on us. In our physical health, first of all, fear can actually weaken our immune system and can cause cardiovascular damage, gastrointestinal problems such as ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome, gross, and even decreased fertility. So no good, right? And it can even lead to accelerated aging and even premature death. I blame all of my gray hairs on my kids and, fear of what they did as teenagers. Kidding. They're great kids. Secondly, the impact of fear is also on memory. Fear can impair formation of long-term memories and cause damage to certain parts of the brain. And this can make it more difficult to even regulate fear. So if you've got a constant diet of fear, if you're doing nothing but listening to the news, your memory may start to be shot. And it can leave a person anxious most of the time. And to someone who actually struggles with chronic fear, the world just looks scary. And their memories confirm that because they don't have any more long-term memory, or it's impaired in some way. And that leads us into number 3. The impact of chronic fear is it slows down brain processing and our reactionary times. Fear can actually interrupt the processes in our brains that allow us to regulate emotions, read nonverbal cues, and other information presented to us. We might not be able to reflect before we act on something, or even ethics play into this as well. It impacts our thinking and our decision making in very, very negative ways, and it leaves us susceptible to very intense emotions and impulsive reactions. And then finally, number 4, all of this stuff we've talked about can impact our mental health. Other consequences of long-term fear include fatigue. You're just tired all the time. You don't know why. Clinical depression. And the list goes on from there. And to me, I was reading this article and I'm thinking, holy smokes, this sounds like a lot of buyers and sellers I know right now. Because there's just this overarching cloud of fear with what's going to go on in the housing market. But I don't believe that the stats actually support this level of fear that's currently going on. And so Austin's actually going to jump in here and talk about some of the statistics in our market, and then we'll talk about some of the opportunities and how we can push past that fear and really take advantage of what's going on in the market currently. So Austin, what are some stats you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think touching on fear is really important as well, and going through what it can do to us, because It's preventable. Yeah, there's fearful situations all around us, and in fear, history has shown us that there's some of the biggest opportunities that can come from that fear, come from market shifts, stuff like that. So it's really important you know where you get your news from, where you get your stats from, who you're talking to, and look below the fear or above the fear, whichever way, wherever the opportunity is. And just try to see the bright side of it, because there is opportunity in every market, and we're going to kind of walk you through what opportunities are in today's market. Before we get into that, let's look at the stats. Here in Washington County, we do see inventory raising. We're at about 1.6 months of inventory, which is a lot higher than previous. And is that homes, maybe more homes coming on the market? Is it homes sitting on the market for longer? Well, maybe both, but it doesn't matter, because as a buyer, it just means more homes for you to look at and more opportunity for you to get into a home. Here in Clark County, we are at 2 months of inventory, and that's a huge increase from previous months, even the start of the year. So time on market's a little longer, some more homes are coming on, they're not selling as quick. Buyers have a great opportunity right now to be able to at least see more homes before they pull the trigger, or they get to be a little more selective of what they get.
You mean they don't have to make an offer in under 5 minutes of walking through the front door?
Yeah, that was really never the case. That was more mass media and just kind of fear of not getting a home. The other side of fear.
Fear of missing out.
Fear, yeah, FOMO.
FOMO.
We all get that sometimes, but yeah, that was never the case of having to put an offer right away. And you had to be selective and quick when you did want a house. Now you have a little bit more time to process, but that doesn't mean if you find a home that you really want or that you're looking for, doesn't mean someone still can't come in underneath you and buy it before you do, right?
Yeah.
So with all that said, there's a lot of opportunity in this market. Yes, prices are stabilizing. Prices aren't necessarily going down. We are seeing a lot of price corrections. It just means sellers can't really shoot for the moon anymore. They can't just put a random price on the page, and even if it doesn't sell right away, maybe in 2 weeks the price will appreciate enough to where it will finally sell. So we're having to see sellers price their homes correctly, may still stay on the market for a few more days. Our buyer pool is a lot smaller, and that's where the opportunity lies. So Mike, why don't you tell us about some of the opportunities that lie in this market right now for buyers?
Well, we're seeing longer days on market. So, we were only halfway joking about that, making an offer within 5 minutes. A lot of times, though, it was within the same day, because if you didn't get in there, somebody else would swoop in and grab it up. We're not seeing as many multiple offers right now. So the days on market are definitely longer. The inventory has gone up. It was under 1 month for the better part of a year and a half, and now we're at 2 months. So yes, inventory has basically doubled. So you're seeing more signs out there as you drive through neighborhoods, but still historically, we talked about that memory being impaired when people are scared, right? Historically, number one, interest rates were higher than they were right now, and I personally feel that we're probably going to settle in between about 5.5% and 7% long term. Also, inventory has historically been right between 5 and 6 months, so we are still very low on the inventory for houses to sell. That also for buyers can lead to more negotiating power. Maybe you're going to get a few more repairs done than you thought, and save you a few bucks that the seller has to kick out. Maybe there's going to be less competition for that house because that buyer pool is going to shrink, at least for a little bit. Buyers, this is potentially your window of opportunity when interest rates tick up. If you are not right on that bubble and you can still afford to get into a house that you really like, man, jump on that thing now, because when people take their blinders off and they realize, oh my gosh, we're still going to miss out. Houses are still appreciating, albeit not as fast a rate, but they still are appreciating. And rents are going up, all of which we're seeing happening, by the way. You've got less competition right now. If you act quickly while somebody's still paralyzed in fear, you can get that house. And so there is some opportunity there if you're really ready to go. Now, I am not saying that you do anything irresponsible. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're ready to go, strike while that iron's hot. And if you really like that house, jump on it. Because once people kind of get used to, I hate this phrase, but once they get used to the new normal of interest rates, which are going to be with us for the foreseeable future, the pace of business is going to pick back up. It just will, as people kind of get used to everything. The first Fed interest rate hike of the year, we saw everybody kind of hit the pause button just for a little bit. Well, now activity's starting to pick back up again. And with the next one, we're going to see the same thing. People are going to hit the pause button. A month or two later, they're going to pick back up that activity again. So you've got an opportunity, buyers, specifically I'm talking to you, you've got an opportunity to get into houses right now that you may not have had the opportunity to get in on. You may have gotten outbid. I still think we're going to see a few multiple offers here and there. So if you like that house, if it's a unique property, jump on it. Don't wait.
Yeah, and with that said, you can also turn it the other way. Sellers, if you're thinking about selling, this is the reality of our market. So everything we're saying now, this is how we would advise you and let you know what the market looks like now if we were to sell your home. There's less buyers. They may have more negotiating power. We need to price it right. It may sit on longer. Doesn't mean your house is any less valuable, any less desirable. It's just what the market is. So knowing what the market is, knowing the statistics, and knowing just how fear plays a part in just the consumer's life, in personal spendings of our communities, is really important to know. Hey, one of the biggest investments of your life, your home, may be affected by these type of things.
Absolutely. And sellers, everything we just talked about for buyers, flip that over, reverse that, and the same is true for you, because it's still a seller's market. Like we talked about, there's only 2 months of inventory in Clark County, 1.6 months of inventory in Washington County, Beaverton area. You've still got opportunity here. Your days on market, it's not going to go in hours or even a day or two like it did for the last couple of years, which were, by the way, insane, in case you didn't know that. But it may take a few weeks, but it's still going to go. Your house, as long as it's priced appropriately, is not going to be sitting there for 6 months to a year. Like, some people are thinking back to the recession, 08, 09, they're going, oh my gosh, my house is never going to sell. That's not the case. Number one, we don't have the same type of mortgage-backed securities that got us into the same issues back then. And number two, we are still way underbuilt. If you look at the number of houses built per decade, man, once 2010 hit, it's way low. It's less than half, almost a quarter, actually, of previous decades. And so we're still way underbuilt from the recession. So our inventory issue is not going to be solved anytime soon. Builders have got a long way to go to get houses up and out of the ground before we start seeing that months of inventory really skyrocket up to even average to 5-6 months. So if you look at the numbers, if you look at actually what's going on, some of that fear that you may be experiencing right now, if you're involved in the housing market, some of that fear could potentially go away, because there's a lot of opportunity here for both buyers and sellers as long as you've adjusted to this new type of market. We are in transition right now, there's no doubt about that, but there's no reason to be scared. There's no reason to be fearful about this. It's just information to maybe change how you go about selling your house, or if you're a buyer, how you go about actually purchasing a home.
And with all of this said, we understand that everyone's situation is different. And if you have any questions about your specific situation, how you fit into the market, how your home is valued in this market, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We'd be happy to give you a free consultation, walk you through how the market looks for you and how you fit into that. Thank you again for joining us for this podcast.